You've been trying to make changes in your life and they're not sticking. And it isn't because you're lazy, you don't care, or even that you don't know what to do. It's because you're trying to change at the wrong level. You've read the books, set the goals, made promises to yourself and others, and keep falling back on the same patterns. And that's because real change doesn't happen at the level of behavior. It happens at the level of the nervous system. And this is where emotional intelligence comes in, not just as a concept, but as something that you train. In this video, you'll see how your nervous system is the missing link to creating that change. I'll break it down into 4 parts and stick around till part 2 where it really clicks. By the end, you'll see why those changes you've been trying to make haven't stuck and how to create that lasting change from the inside out. Number 1, the foundation is self-awareness, and specifically a finely tuned clarity on our emotional processes as they are happening. Just like we see, smell, taste, hear, touch, there's another sense called interoception where we can perceive the emotional processes happening in our body. And it's something that gets stronger and clearer and easier to do as we practice it over time. This is here, we're building emotional literacy, being able to clearly feel and put words to what we're feeling. Think of it like a world-class chef. They can put a blindfold on, taste all kinds of ingredients, and know exactly what they are. And building self-awareness, having a refined sense of what's happening in our body, we're building that same level of skill and sophistication to have a precise understanding of our emotional experience and become connoisseurs of our inner world. This is advancing so we don't just feel bad about something, but overwhelmed and disappointed. And even those mixed emotions, like I feel angry, but also, and also the many combinations that emotions come in. Like I'm a little frustrated, but also a little relieved. And noticing how that emotion shows up in the body. It might be a tightness in the chest, a heaviness in our stomach, a tingling in our arms, our shoulders, a quickening of the heart, our breathing changes. And the more we slow down and actually sense what that experience is like, the clearer we're able to see it and then create space between ourself, the one who's witnessing it, and the emotion. The powerful part of this is it becomes intuitively obvious that I'm not anxious, I feel anxious. I'm not angry, I feel angry. And in strengthening that sense of our inner world, we learn to separate ourselves from the emotion. And that space creates, in that space, that separation empowers us to take back power over our emotional experience instead of letting emotions take control. The same thing applies to our thoughts, where the story we tell ourselves can take on a life of its own and suck us into it and then build up those emotions even stronger. But the more we practice witnessing the emotion, witnessing the thoughts, and separating ourselves from that experience, the more we're able to manage and lead our inner world to where we want it to go. The light of self-awareness is a power that transforms chaos into clarity and lets us be there with the emotional experience to receive the wisdom that it has to offer. Feeling like we need to hide from our emotions or numb them. This key element of self-awareness is what creates the ability for part two of self-regulation. This is where most people get stuck. Awareness on its own can easily lead to overwhelm, but all the changes we want to happen from a place of emotional regulation. The learning, the growth, the productive conversations, they all they all require us to be in that place of centered balance. Even if there's strong feelings that come in with it, we're still maintaining that sense of self and not getting emotionally hijacked in the process. Emotions are powerful as fuel, as teachers, as allies in the process of change. But because they're so powerful, they can also take over. So creating that space to experience the emotions as the self is what empowers us to then self-regulate. And there's two key elements here: building emotional stability and learning to quickly gain emotional balance. Emotional stability happens with the lifestyle practices that help us feel and perform at our best, like getting enough sleep, having regular movement, tapping into some kind of mindfulness practice, giving our body the nutrition that gives it the building blocks to make more of those feel-good chemicals and gets us out of that chronic inflammation, which leads to chronic stress. These aren't just healthy habits for our bodies, they're healthy habits for emotional power, for training our nervous system to stay in that state of centered presence, vitality, connection, and overall well-being. Even so, life happens. There's times where we're going to lose that sense of stability, and this is where getting good at having emotional balance, of getting back to it, becomes an essential skill for developing emotional intelligence and training our nervous system to create that lasting change from the inside out. Emotional balance is vital for those difficult conversations. Emotional balance is vital for those difficult but important conversations, the ones that need to be had but are often more destructive than productive conversations, or when we're feeling overwhelmed about the very thing that's so important to us and we want to be able to push ourselves through it, but sometimes just lose motivation or procrastinate. There's loads of techniques for gaining and keeping our emotional balance. Things like deep breathing, going for a walk, splashing some cold water on your face to use temperature to help regulate the nervous system, getting some water, having some fruit. But here's the thing: they work best when we're a little bit off balance. And if we don't notice that emotion building up, then it gets bigger and it's much harder to get back to that regulated state. And that's why the more we train that self-awareness, being able to see the emotion coming up and notice how it feels and separate ourselves from the emotion, the ones that work best are the ones that work best for you. So it's not the actual coping skills. We already know those, but using them when we need them and when they'll actually work. Because as that emotion builds up, it gets to a point where deep breathing is only going to make things worse, or going for a walk isn't going to fix it, or we might not even be able to use that skill. This is where self-awareness becomes fundamental. Noticing it when it's small and being able to use a solution to keep ourselves in balance. And just like the more we practice self-awareness, the more we build that inner apparatus to be able to sense those emotions. We learn how to do it. We get good at it. The same is true for finding that emotional balance. And the more we practice whatever techniques work for us, the easier it is for our nervous system to re-regulate. A lot of us are trapped in cycles of chronic stress and don't even know it. And being stuck in fight or flight mode, being stuck in survival mode makes it really hard to change behaviors, to learn new behaviors, to take in information, to have productive conversations that heal a relationship, stick to some kind of action to build the kind of lasting change that we want. But the more we support our nervous system with getting into the relaxations response, the better it is at staying there. We're strengthening that vagal tone. We start to enjoy more peace, and all the resources that were going to support that survival mode are now freed up and can go into healing, creativity, connection, investing in the long-term behaviors that we're trying to create. The bottom line is that when we're trying to create change, the real lasting change comes from a place of regulation. And if we haven't mastered that skill, all the other all the other skills are going to be next to impossible to really soak in. But the more we practice building emotional stability and getting back into emotional balance when things are challenging, the easier it gets. And over time, it replaces that survival mode, the chronic stress, as the default response to be centered, present, and ready to grow. Emotions are powerful allies, powerful fuel in creating the kind of life that we want. They're like the colors that our mind uses to paint the canvas of life. And over time, we can get stuck with the kind of colors that make it hard to paint a beautiful experience with. These colors also paint the picture of our relationships and our place in the world. As we work in ourselves to upgrade that palette, it'll also benefit those interpersonal dynamics and how we're able to move in the world around us. This goes deeper than you think, which is what part 3, social awareness, is all about. When we've been stuck in survival mode, chronic stress, and been hurt a lot of times throughout life, our nervous system gets primed to detect threat. We become hypersensitive to cues of rejection from others around us. It affects our body language, our tone of voice, and is quietly running in the background, even if we're not aware of it. We'll also filter out a lot of the positive things that are happening, honing in on the negative ones, which then this has a way of making more of those negative things happen in the people that we're interacting with. So by shifting more into that relaxation response, being present, connected, it helps us see more of the positive, connect at a deeper level, experience more intimacy, more trust, and build that rapport that naturally leads to more of the things that we want to have. In developing our social awareness, we can learn all the different body language things. There's plenty of good books and videos on that. We can practice it in our day-to-day life, but learning those things alone won't create a lasting change unless we first go in and learn to pivot from survival mode to thriving mode. You see, when we're in that state of being, our mind is designed to pick up on threat, and seeing that threat prompts our instincts to go into defense mode. And as we're defending, we're also blocking out all the goodness that wants to come into our lives. Someone who's showing us affection, appreciation, inviting us into an opportunity isn't going to make it past that mental filter. So learning to trust, to let that guard down, and to feel safe. Feeling safe allows our mind to take in more of the affection, the appreciation, the opportunity that's already there, and respond in a way that creates more of it, to intentionally seek it out and cultivate those things through in, through embodying a totally different space of awareness. Now, again, this doesn't mean life is perfect, that it's all sunshine and roses, but it's probably a lot more than we think. And when those threats do come up, when others are being defensive and throwing jabs at us, we can start to see that response happening in our body and separate from it so we can signal to ourselves, wait a minute, they can be worked up about this. It doesn't mean I have to be. And return to that place of peace and the strength that comes with it. There's something really special that's made possible by inhabiting that new sphere of awareness. It's called attunement. You know when someone looks like they're listening, but you can tell they're actually thinking of what they're going to say next? Like they're physically there, but they're not actually present. The more we rewire our nervous system to be in that present state, it allows us to be more present in the room and really tune in to what people are saying. And the more we practice the skill of attunement, the easier and easier it gets. And this skill is especially helpful in managing our relationships, the people who are close to us, the ones that matter most. Brings us into part 4. Through this entire process, we're developing the skills that help us with those personal interactions, like managing frustration, delaying our impulse, getting better at seeing the other person's side of things, not getting emotionally hijacked, really knowing what we're feeling so we can then articulate it to people around us and express our needs clearly to give them a chance to meet them. Like with other parts in this video, there's loads of communication techniques to help us learn how to do this. But none of those techniques really work if we're still operating from a place of fight or flight. Or even if we show up well, but we very quickly get hijacked as soon as we get to the important part of the conversation. Doesn't matter which formula you use, it's not going to come out well and it's not going to land. It's also going to be hard to hear the other person's point of view, which is super important if our emotional defenses are up and nothing they're saying can even get through. So as we build that self-awareness and become masters of self-regulation and get really good at tuning in to other people and in our close relationships, we have that solid foundation to show up authentically, to hold healthy boundaries while also taking accountability, to connect at a deeper level through and from that place of emotional freedom and deep presence. And all those emotions we were feeling are still there. Emotions are indispensable for human connection. The emotions aren't bad, they're just powerful. And if we haven't developed our nervous system to be able to carry them, to lead them, and use them as fuel, as allies in creating the life we want, they can take over. And they don't do as good of a job at managing our lives as we do. So in training our nervous system to bear that emotional load, it opens up the space for self-leadership, for self-mastery, and taking the mighty force of emotions to put it to good use and create more of the life that we want. And that change happens from the inside and naturally leads to changes in the world around us. When we get really good at self-regulating, we also get good at co-regulating, at being that calming presence for others. When we come in and that positive state of well-being, it naturally rubs off on the people around us. And when they're having a tough time and we're emotionally strong enough, we can then help them carry that emotion and be that strong, supportive person that the world needs so much right now. Emotional intelligence is a very strong framework for understanding how to move forward in our lives and create that lasting change. All the behavioral changes of emotional intelligence really happen at the level of our nervous system. And, and adding in this perspective and learning how to train our nervous system to embody more of these traits naturally over time gives us the solid foundation, the inner skill set, the neural architecture, and the hormonal balance for these changes, to move from impossible to inevitable. Stay tuned. In another video, I'll be breaking this down into the mechanics of how you can apply this in your daily life to experience more of that emotional freedom and the beautiful connections and presence and progress towards your goals that comes with it.